What is going on, everyone? This is Andrew O'Connell with Pristine Capital, coming at you with yet another market recap video. It is November 23rd, 2020. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this content, and I will continue to make it for you. Today we're going to be talking about the price action, the indices, volatility. We're going to check out those sectors and style factors, the two trades I put on today, including one that I'm very excited about. And then we will wrap up with some options order flow. Before we jump in, quick risk disclaimer. Nothing in this video should be construed as investment advice or recommendations. Please follow your own trading plan and do not YOLO your account into any one of my trades. With that being said, let's jump right into it. So today was another super bullish day. If you take a look, we had been tracking that that little channel that we had going on here, this tight little range that we had for the past couple days, and we clearly broke out of that range to the upside. So we have, the ES now, bearish sequence heading into the election, very bullish sequence post-election. We tagged a high at 36.68 for the ES, and you can see we consolidated for a good 2 weeks. And now it looks like we're breaking up towards the top end of that range. And you can see here that once again, we are hitting that R1 pivot level of 36.40. And the next real test is seeing if we can break beyond that pivot of 36.40 and reach the prior high of 36.68. And that high was reached on that Pfizer vaccine pop about 2 weeks ago. And that was the day after the election. So yeah, right now we're sort of in this range. Everything is looking bullish. Everything is pointing up. And this is going to be, that real test, see if we can push up. So we had for our scores today, the ES, the SPY, up 1.61%. We had the Qs actually coming back today, up 1.41%. We had the small caps IWM up 1.88%. And we had the Dow Jones up 1.53%. So as of now, like I said, everything is pointing up. The trend is up. Sentiment is getting pretty hot, as I've pointed out. But things, as of right now, it's really bullish until proven bearish. So let's take a look at the Qs as well. And these had a bit of a comeback rally today. The Qs had been lagging for quite some time. And yeah, you can see they tested the top of value yesterday. And this is the monthly value area. And you can see they bounced right off of that, and they're making a nice push to the upside. So the Qs as well, still haven't reached the prior high from, that Pfizer vaccine pump, but we'll have to see in the days to come if we can hit that level once again. Now, if we take a look at IWM, this is the one that has been flying really for the past couple of weeks. Wow, this is pretty crazy. So you can see IWM, we had the R1 pivot down here at 171.1. This one really never even took a break post-election. And you can see we are just continuing to move higher. So you can see we closed above that R2 pivot. Oh, it looks like this thing shifted up a little bit. Wow. Okay, so the R2 pivot at 184.88. Yeah, sometimes the data takes a while to crunch and then the levels kind of move around a bit before they settle. But yeah, it looks like we reached that R2 pivot. We'll have to see, what happens from there. But nonetheless, we are very extended from the monthly value area. And we'll really have to see what the river brings in terms of next moves. But this is certainly very bullish. And then the Dow, I'm sure, is looking pretty similar. Yeah, Dow's looking pretty good here as well. So you can see all of these, they've really just consolidated post-election after a really nice run. And you can see it looks like for this one, we're coming up against that R1 pivot, around 300 and change. So for all these, like I said, we are seeing some very bullish action in the markets. And even like when you look at the headline indices, it doesn't even tell the full story. Because what we've been seeing is, big cap tech has really been lagging. So like for the S&P 500, we really haven't done anything for 2 weeks. But within the headline index, and really a lot of companies that are not even in these big indices, there have been some really nice moves. So let's take a look. We'll dive into some of those moves when we look at our sectors and style factors right here. Let's see, we'll bring it into presentation mode for you. And take a look at this, another incredible day. So you can see we had energy up 5.14%. And look at that monthly return, up 26% here. So you can see there's a lot of momentum in the energy sector. Cannabis as well. This is one that I do have a position in. I have May calls. And this one is another leader, up 3.95% for today and up 20% on the month. You can see the global autos also at the top of the list in terms of momentum, and the solar energy, which I do have a position in as well, up 2.91%. But you can really just see there was a lot of strength in these markets, and a lot of these sectors look like, to be honest, they are just completely blowing off. Like the other day we had the news that Janet Yellen is going to be the Treasury Secretary. And in my mind, and I think for a lot of people on Wall Street, it's essentially like we're going to have two, Federal Reserve chairs. And you can just tell, there's going to be very accommodative monetary policy. And everyone is really celebrating that. So, we have the vaccines that are coming in and going to alleviate some of the pressures from COVID. We have the super dovish Fed and now a Treasury Secretary that can work with them. So yeah, there's a lot of things to be excited about in this market. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these blow-off type moves. Towards the bottom of the list, you can see medical devices, still not really showing any momentum. Utilities had a little bit of a bounce today, but those gold miners just cannot catch a break. Down 2.74% for the day and 11.49% for the month. If we look at our style factors, we can see the high beta style factor ETF. This thing just continues to rip to the upside, up 4.48%. And, if you've been watching these videos with me for the past couple weeks, you can really see that once a sector catches momentum and it moves towards the top of my list, momentum is a real thing and it tends to continue to move, until the trend breaks. So we have cyclicals up 3.19%. We have international value up. And towards the bottom of the list, sure enough, we have growth, defensives, and min-vol. So this is, super risk-on activity. One thing I did want to point out, and I do think, I was getting super bullish in terms of the markets heading into the election. And I've just caught, a lot of this move to the upside. So now that I'm seeing, some of these sentiment indicators and positioning indicators at extremes, the trend is still up, but this is where I'm adding, some hedges onto my portfolio, really just to protect the gains that I've made in 2020. So I do think there's some people that, think I'm turning into a perma bear or something, but it's really just, hey, I'm seeing nobody is bearish right now. So now, in my opinion, is the time where, if I want to hedge my portfolio, it's just a good time to do so. So we have the Fear and Greed Index registering at an 88. And this thing at times, it can move even higher. So this thing, just because it's at an 88, it doesn't mean the market's going to roll over or anything like that. The momentum is to the upside in the markets right now. So this is something, it's not the end of the world, but you can tell, the positioning and the sentiment is getting pretty extreme. So now for some of the trades that I put on today, I added to my hedges on my portfolio. I grabbed some December 2nd SPY 363 strike puts. And I wrote here probably just lighting this money on fire. Because that can happen where when sentiment gets so extreme like this, it could just lead to a blow-off parabolic move. So even if I pull up, I'll show you guys this. This scenario could certainly play out here where, SPY is in a very tight range. You can see we've been trading, in this range for about 2 weeks now. And, it could certainly break to the upside here. So and even if we check out the Bollinger Bands, yeah, you can see there, it's not over here when we have this big red candle, that was, we were super stretched in terms of, distance from the key moving averages. In terms of the Bollinger Bands, those are really opening up to the upside. So these are hedges, hopefully they expire worthless. But I figured it was prudent given the extreme positioning hey, I'll add to these hedges. Added very close to the high of the day, which is always good. And then the other trade that I put on, this one I'm, super excited about, to be honest. It's like I'll pull this one up. Sama. This is a SPAC. And the company that's being acquired here is a Colombian cannabis company. And the cannabis space, has been super hot lately and just continues to see a lot of upside momentum. So I took the January 10 strike calls for $1.15. And so I'll pull up the chart here. You can take a look. So Sama, this one, and we'll go to the full screen. Oh wow, I didn't even realize this over here. Wow, this thing opened up at 18 bucks. But anyway, this Sama chart, really what we have going on here is Sama really has not been moving around at all. And this looks kind of weird, so I'm going to switch back to this mode. I'll just see if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, yeah, that's much better. So Sama, you can see over the past couple months really has not done anything. You can see we hit a high of around like $11.20 back in June. Really has not done much. But you can see that yesterday there was a pretty big uptick in the volume here. And, you can see as well again today there was a big uptick in volume. So like, for instance, this one, it had a relative volume of 19. So compared to the average volume today was 19 times. The other thing that's interesting about this is the float is super, super small. There's less than 500,000 shares outstanding. And with these SPACs, basically what that means is if a big player comes in and decides like, hey, I want a position in Sama, I like this acquisition that's going to happen. Apparently the Colombian cannabis company, they are able to, basically get out like a gram of cannabis for about like 20 cents, and the industry standard is about $1. And apparently they supply cannabis extract to Canopy Growth, which is, like a huge supplier in Canada. So this company, there's some interesting things about it. The other thing that's cool is like with these SPACs, the floor is around, like $10 a share. So like my strike price on my calls is 10 bucks. So I would imagine like, say, even if Sama doesn't really do much, until January, say if it just comes down and even goes to $10, worst case scenario, I'll just end up taking ownership of a bunch of shares at 10 bucks. But this one, if it gets any sort of momentum, like let's say this one gets up to like $15 a share or something like that, this could easily be a multi-bagger in terms of my calls that I purchased for $1.15. So this one, I'm just going to be patient with it, watch what happens. But this one, in terms of risk reward, I'm very excited, for this trade. I think it's a good opportunity. So those were the primary two trades that I put on for the day. And let's take a look at some of the options order flow. You can see here the flow today was 64% calls, 36% puts. So you can see, very heavy volume on the call side. And let's take a look at these large orders. Wow, there were a lot of large orders today. Oh my gosh, look at all this activity. So these guys, like, this is another thing, another reason why I like looking at Cheddarflow is because in terms of, putting together the market mosaic, this just gives me a lot of context and confirmation. So like this is, pretty characteristic of a hot market where, you just have a lot of calls coming down the pipeline. I see it looks like some people are positioning in, like IWM, pretty short-term calls. These are for, like mid-December. That's a $4.5 million block, so pretty big. This is a pretty interesting one. I rarely see CRISPR come up here. These are for January of 2023, and they're 70 strike calls. Take a look at CRISPR. Okay, wow, this name definitely looks super bullish. This one I'm probably going to put on my watch list because it's not, super extended like some of the other names are. You can see it's really consolidating here putting in a nice high base. But the strike price for these was $70. So this looks like more of a stock replacement play. So pretty interesting nonetheless. Let's see APD. I rarely see this one come up either. Wow, this is another one that looks pretty interesting. Because a lot of the names, are super extended at this point. But this one, it looks like, pretty violent drop. And now it is curling a little bit. So let's see what these guys picked up for APD. They bought, where was that order? Okay, APD right here. Okay, this is another one for January of 2023. They went with the 220 strike calls for 1.9 million. Huh, yeah, so another stock replacement play. Looks like a lot of people are going with these stock replacement plays. I see Pinterest. Oh, yeah, and it looks like there was a little mini dip in Pinterest. Okay, yeah, nice little dip in Pinterest. So that's one I'll be watching tomorrow as well. Okay, and then we have these for, of course, you're always going to have some Tesla orders. The last one I want to look at is this one, CVAC. So I like looking for the things that are, like unusual. Wow, this one, CVAC, had a really long wick on this candle today. So that probably shook a lot of people out, to be honest. And let's see, this one, another very low float stock. With all the momentum that the market has right now, this is where the low float stocks work. The stocks with very high short interest, the SPACs, the EVs, things like that are way more speculative. When you're in sort of like a more like bearish or conservative market, typically it's like the very conservative, like mega cap tech names, like safety plays that are doing well. So with these, it's like, while we're in this raging bull, you can continue to play these names, but I would just be very cognizant of your risk. Because once things go risk off, a lot of these will have pretty major volatility. But yeah, this CVAC, a clinical stage biopharma company engages in developing various transformative medicines. Huh. Okay, yeah, so it looks like it's, just some biotech company. But for whatever reason, yeah, it looks like the price action is super bullish here. So I'll probably add this to my watch list as well. But that about does it for our options activity. That's really like the bulk of the flow and some of the more interesting things I'm seeing. Once again, Cheddarflow is doing a 40% off sale for Black Friday. So if you are interested in, using this options order flow, definitely something to take a look at and take advantage of. I am going to post my affiliate link in the description to this video. But I do enjoy posting this content out for free as well and walking through it with you in the evenings here, so no pressure either way. Once again, that about does it for my market recap video. Overall, the trend is still pretty bullish, but just be careful because sentiment is very hot. So that about does it. Have a good night, everyone, and I will see you all tomorrow.